This report has Blues fans in shambles. After Doug Armstrong placed a young budding goaltender on waivers, we get a huge report surrounding him going into start the season, and this is not what Blues fans want to hear. Well, we're also going to dive into a article that is absolutely ridiculous. We're going to break down all this in this episode, and you're not going to want to miss it. So, Darius, let's just dive straight into it today, where we do know the Blues had to make some cuts to their rosters, a couple placed on waivers, and we know the biggest one surrounding the team was Colton Ellis, and he was claimed by the Buffalo Sabres. Now, the big thing with Colton Ellis, we're going to break down how he didn't really fit within the timeline of this Blues team, but initially looking at this, a goaltender that's dominated on every single level. You can work your way through the Q, the ECHL, the AHL, never getting a chance in the NHL. But the biggest thing with Colton Ellis is he's a young goaltender that's going to blossom. Now, we're going to touch on a lot more on this, but what is your initial thoughts on the Blues losing a promising goaltender for absolutely nothing?
Yeah, and all the waiver claims just went through right now because a lot of teams had to do them yesterday in time for the 5 o'clock roster set that's going to happen, the 5 o'clock Eastern roster set that's going to happen later today. And what was kind of lost in it too for Blues fans was Skinner was not claimed, so he's going down to the AHL. But like we talked about in our video yesterday, I was very, very worried about Colton Ellis being claimed off waivers because of his numbers, and it would be great to keep him in the organization. And alas, here we are. He has been claimed off waivers. I am in shambles. I really wanted them to keep this guy in the organization. But what's even worse, also, before we move on to how this happened, is that he's going to the goalie wasteland, the graveyard for goalies in Buffalo. That's what makes it so much worse. He could have been going to any other team, and I would have felt better about it, but very unfortunate. Hopefully, he finds success there, and wishing him the best. But like you kind of alluded to, Mark, there is a reason that this happened. It's because the Blues have two really good goaltenders, and they could not fit this guy. Obviously, well, they could, of course. He could have went down to the AHL, but now has to go through waivers and that whole process. So had to do that. He was ultimately claimed. But if you look at the Blues goaltending situation, there's no world, I think, that he was going to play. And I saw a couple comments saying trade Binnington now. I think the Blues are still, trying to go for a cup, that's for sure, and have Stanley Cup aspirations this year. And I think expectations are a lot higher this season for Blues fans and the Blues themselves, the players on the team. So I don't think you trade Jordan Binnington. He looks like he's in midseason form already. He had a great second half of the season last year. And obviously, Joel Hall of Famer is going to be the backup, and that nothing was going to change that heading into this year. So kind of a logjam there. I wouldn't say I was expecting it, but ultimately it's something that could happen. They ended up losing Ellis to waivers, and it's unfortunate, but the Blues are in a good situation with their goaltending nonetheless.
And I think the biggest thing is, one thing I'm surprised about is Doug Armstrong didn't go out to try to asset management this and maybe trade him off to a team for a low draft pick or a mid. But I do think this management group looked at Colton Ellis and said, hey, he doesn't have the NHL experience. Yes, he's been dominant in every force and league that he's been in. Maybe they were just really banking on him clearing waivers. But a lot of players got taken. We've seen a lot of goaltenders get taken as well on these waivers. So it sucks to see Ellis go to a new team, like you said, the wasteland of goaltenders in Buffalo. But the big thing is, listen, we're still going to root for a kid like Colton Ellis. I love that he gets an opportunity. He's 25 years old. I think the timeline with this team was the biggest thing. You're 25 years old. You're starting to creep into your prime years of being a goaltender. And like you said, with Jordan Binnington locked up for the next 2 years, with Joel Hofer locked up on this team for the next 2 years, unless an injury happened, we weren't going to really get Ellis to be able to shine within the pipes on this team. So there is two ways you can look at it. Yes, it's going to be awesome. The kid gets the chance to go out and play for not a great team in the Buffalo Sabres, but you also get the opportunity to let him show that he's dominant. Maybe he goes on waivers and we reclaim him. That would be awesome. But the biggest thing with this is, and it kind of leads into an article that we've seen on the Blues goaltender. So there was a stupid article that went out. The 3 reasons the Blues will miss the postseason. Absolute ridiculous. And this was written by, I think, a Boston Bruins fan. I mean, 2019 was hard for a lot of them. But the biggest thing is, going into this article, I seen number 2, the goaltending tandem was the reason why he said this team was not going to make the push. This is a goaltending tandem that went out to not only play good going into the hockey tournament, but we also seen Jordan Binnington be outstanding regular season, going on a run, going into the postseason, helping the Blues go to Game 7. Darius, going into this article and seeing just the goaltending tandem being a reason that this team won't make the playoffs. What is your initial thoughts on this?
Well, if there's three reasons that the Blues will not make the playoffs, and listen, the Blues are going to make the playoffs unless something catastrophic happens. I mean, one of the things on this list should have been every single player on the team gets injured and is out for the season, right? So, unless something catastrophic happens, this Blues team should absolutely make the playoffs. But one of the three reasons should absolutely not be goaltending. And sometimes, every once in a while, you see an article like this and some things out there where you're like, hey, that doesn't really make sense. This is odd. And then you find out, from Boston 2019 still in the back of the head, all of that stuff, because the Blues ultimately won the Stanley Cup that year against the Boston Bruins. But the goaltending thing, it's not a reason that they would ever miss the playoffs. Binnington looks awesome, especially through the preseason. Again, like I mentioned, second half of the season he looked awesome, so I'm expecting big things from him this year. The consistency thing, are there going to be times this season where you're like, oh my god, Jordan, like, what are you doing in net? Probably, right? Like, there's moments like that throughout his career, but ultimately he'll be fine. Hofer, I have all the confidence in the world in him. I think he could probably be a starting goaltender somewhere else, honestly, on another team. So to have him as the backup, you're in a good situation here. So goaltending is not going to be the issue and not a reason why this team misses the playoffs. They would have to deal with some significant injury trouble, I think, throughout the regular season to, miss the playoffs. And one of the reasons should probably be the division that they're playing. And it's a tough division, and maybe you end up falling to the wild card again. But ultimately, I think the Blues are a much better team on paper this year. And you have a little bit of that synergy from last year where guys like Fowler came in, halfway through the season. Now you have a full season of this. Broberg has another year under his belt. Holloway looks like Hollywood Holloway looks like he's going to be a star this year. So that'll be a lot of fun to watch. So I think that's a bit ridiculous.
And I mean, when you're looking through it, another reason they said was just the consistency going through on this team. But overall, this Blues team got deeper. They went on a run. They took the best team in the regular season last year in the Winnipeg Jets to a Game 7, which we probably should have, or the Blues should have came out with a win on this. But the biggest thing with this team, dear, is saying the goaltenders aren't good from that article is just insane. If they weren't good, they would address this. We know Doug Armstrong went out. We needed centers. He went out and picked up Nick Bukestad and Pius Suter. Everything with this team, with everything coming together, this is a team that's going to make some serious noise. You can see it from the forward group, the centers, the defensemen. They also said the defenseman, we don't have a number one. Colton Parayko is a name that's on this team, and same with Cam Fowler. Overall, this Blues team is going to go on a deep run. But fans, what is your thoughts on this? What is your thoughts on Colton Ellis being claimed? It really sucks to see. We're going to see the kid blossom, and maybe this is one of the situations that keeping three goaltenders is going to be what they should have ended up doing. What is your thoughts on the article? What's your thoughts on the goaltending? Let us know down in the comments. And speaking of comments, let's go straight in the comments of the day. Coming from Tim's, and he said, really wanted to see Dvorsky and Stenberg make the team, but in the long run, the right move. And I completely agree. Getting these guys into the AHL to work on their game, dominate, instead of playing fourth line minutes is exactly what we want to see as these guys develop into soon-to-be NHLers, because it's not far. But what is your guys' thoughts? Go ahead and leave a comment down below, and you could be featured on Comments of the Day. While you're down there, leave a like, subscribe, share this with your friends. We'll be back in another episode, so keep your eye out for that. But I've been your host, Mark, with my co-host, Darius, and take care, Blues fans.